So I'm very excited to host this third session in our four-part slow meat series. We've already heard from Adrienne Lipscomb on how to cure bacon. We heard from Chef Juan Barajas on grass-fed beef. Next week, we're talking about slow meat policy. But this week, we're really pleased to feature the Tanka Bar. And with us today is Don Sherman and Lisa and Arlo Ironcloud. So thank you both, all three of you, for joining us today. Let me give quick introductions, and then without much further ado, I'll hand it over to Don to introduce us to Tanka Bar. Don Sherman is the CEO of Native American Natural Foods. Tanka Bar is their brand. They have bars, they have bites, they have sticks. It started 13 years ago in 2007, and they just recently announced in January of 2020 a collaborative partnership with Niman Ranch for technical resources and operational support. I'll put in the chat a few articles that were written by Marilyn Noble to give you some more historical context. But Tanka Bar, created the first meat and fruit bar category, but then was pushed aside by the bigs, by corporations, and now they are reclaiming this space. So Dawn, I'm sure you'll talk about that more in a few minutes. But let me introduce Lisa and Arlo Ironcloud as well. They live in Rapid City, and they work on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Arlo manages a radio station and works in media and marketing. And Lisa teaches classes on how to prepare traditional Lakota style foods. Together, they work to promote traditional foodways. They work closely with the tribal herd, and they focus on revitalizing practices related to bison. Before we jump in, I just want to give my deep thanks to Niman Ranch and Tanka Bar both, our longtime partners, for sponsoring this event series. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dawn. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for joining today. You get the exciting to watch how to make a Tanka Bar, or what we call Wasna, which is a traditional recipe that we've used for many years. Again, my name's Don Sherman. Currently, I am sitting on, just to recognize the land that I am at, I'm kind of in a junction here in Wichita Falls, Texas. So it's Kickapoo, Comanche, Apache, and Kiowa is the land that I'm sitting on right now. So I wanted to recognize and honor that. I am Lenape, Delaware, and Lakota is my representation of where I'm from. And I was born and raised in South Dakota and the Pine Ridge Reservation. So it's my community, it's home. I'm really excited to have Lisa and Arlo here, community members also, and great people. And I'm honored to call them my friends and watch as they make traditional wasna. So I'm really excited about this. Just to kind of let you a little bit know about Native American Natural Foods, we created the Tanka Bar 13 years ago. It's amazing to say that. And to make a Tanka Bar from beginning to end in our fashion right now, the way we modernize the Wasna recipe takes 9 hours. So from beginning to end, to make one Tanka Bar is 9 hours, from mixing the ingredients to smoking it to getting it packed and then out to our customers. So it is a long, slow process. We take pride in that because we did take a traditional recipe and convert that and modernize it. Mark Tilson and Carlene Hunters are the founders of Native American Natural Foods and the creators of Tanka Bar, and the community came together and to honor the buffalo. And having buffalo in our product is not by accident. So the bison in there also is because it is part of our culture and part of our community, and our creation story was of the buffalo. So we're so intrinsically balanced with the buffalo itself. They are our ancestors. And I'm going to kind of leave it there and then allow for some flow of conversation with Lisa and Arlo as they move forward. So Lisa and Arlo, if you want to go ahead and take it from there, and then start making our wasna.
Okay. So where do we get started?
I think we should start by just acknowledging Tanka Bar, Dawn, and her work with Tanka Bar. I think that is tremendous work. I mean, it's such an honor to see Wasna on a international scale, and so Tanka Bar's like just to see our way of life, our culture, take that kind of scale is to me, it's an honor. It feels good, and it also lights the way for all other indigenous peoples, because I think our foods have been neglected for decades now. Even though the majority of foods across America are indigenous. So just to see that, it's an honor. And Don and everybody at Tanka Bar, their work is very much appreciated. It helps us, our relatives, and it helps our people.
Yeah, and you should see the reaction too when we share our Tanka Bar. Man, those people are like, Tanka Bar? I want Tanka Bar, you know? So it's pretty cool to see their face just lights up and, you know, they want Tanka Bar. So that's pretty cool.
The cool thing what Tanka Bar did when they first got started was that they, like what we have here is what they did. They literally got down, and there are so many recipes for Wasna. And when I make reference to Wasna and Tanka Bar, it's essentially the same thing. So they got together on a table like this, and then they created the many variations that each family has by community. So they basically just got the general gist of what the recipe looks like, and they went across the entire reservation, and then they had taste tests, which was the coolest thing ever. And they did it at powwows, community events, or just went to organizations and did taste tests. So essentially, the Tanka Bar is Oglala Lakota tested approved, because everybody had an input on what that taste is. So, and you know, I got to be honest, there was like 2 variations before it that I thought was better, but you know, to be honest, it's really the same thing. So I don't know if you're, do you remember them? They wore these horrible yellow shirts and they were walking around powwows.
I almost wore that today. I almost wore the throwback Tonka shirt for today.
I'm glad you didn't.
And like what you mean, like Wasna, Mark and Carlene, you know, modernized a recipe. So how great to bring in a healthy, you know, something that we're familiar with by modernizing a recipe that everybody already knows and utilizing it. And Wasna means all mixed up, where you're taking a high acid fruit and you're putting it into the meat and preserving it and storing it. And indigenous cultures throughout the world have used that process in their fashion based on their region, whether it's fish or buffalo or lamb or, you know, whatever meat that they're using. They've all had some type of recipe where they've done that. So it's awesome how they've taken it and modernize that recipe, and you know, we've gotten recognized. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. You want to grab the chokecherries out of the freezer
Sure.
real quick?
So should we talk about the buffalo and then the ingredients and the chokecherries?
Yes. Let's do that. Let's talk about the buffalo and chokecherries. Okay, so when we do the wasna, you can, yeah. I forgot to pour these in there. I kind of wanted to give, I don't know if everybody's familiar with chokecherries or not, but I wanted to kind of give an idea of what they look like. So with the buffalo that we're using today, it's the buffalo that I actually was able to take.
Yeah, she harvested this buffalo herself.
Right. So it really means a lot, especially because I was able to hunt it, you know, so, and to be able to process the buffalo on my own and to be able to, you know, prepare it for things like this, for like the wasna. But the buffalo, we have a roast in there too. I'm sorry. I thought I grabbed the roast, but I didn't. So whenever we do the wasna, everybody does it differently, but this is how we do it. This is the way that I was taught through my family. My chepashi, which means my cousin, my female cousin, her name is Anita Afraid of Lightning, and my Tui Karen White Butterfly. They actually helped me, you know, learn more about wasna and how important it was, especially our relatives a long time ago when they would travel by foot and everybody lived so far away from each other that, you know, it took a long time to get to you know, whoever's house you're going to. So they would pack wasna and they would eat it along the way. So when my chepashi and my kumi taught me how to make wasna, we used the dried meat. And this is the buffalo. Whenever we dry it, he's going after a roast right now. But whenever we dry our buffalo, we try to cut it as thin as we can. And I'm not sure if you can see how thin this meat is. It is really thin. And this part of the meat is actually the roast. So we would use the roast or the back straps to gobble or cut into really thin slices like this. And then we would hang it up in our kitchen because we have boards that go across our cupboards, and let it hang to dry in our kitchen. That way we know that we have meat because we don't have room in our freezer sometimes. But we know we have meat still that we can eat. So this is also one of the roasts that from the buffalo that I was able to harvest last year or this year. So, and it was the biggest one that we've gotten so far. So, and it's usually this size right here. And the reason why you want to use the roast is because it's mostly meat. So you have some of that silver skin on it, but whenever we do the cutting, we try to keep that on there because a lot of times the silver skin gets thrown away, but there's also nutrients in the silver skin too. So we try to include that because the meat, especially if you're going to make like bapa soup, you want that sinew in there. You're going to cook it for a long time anyway. So, but this is what we use is the roast, the buffalo roast, and then we'll cut it into the thin strips like I showed you over here, and then hang it up to dry. So this is what it looks like after it's dried.
Awesome.
I don't know if you guys can see that real well. Okay.
And then how
So,
much, there is a question while you're talking about the buffalo. How many pounds is a typical adult buffalo? I can
It
answer.
goes
this.
anywhere from about 300 to about 1,200 pounds
yeah.
of meat. That's just the meat. So, but we utilize everything in that bad boy. So it, even though it's interesting when we talk with today's hunters and we compare like how a hunter today utilizes meat versus how we utilize meat. Yeah, we're literally eating all the organs. We're eating parts of the stomach that they would never go near, and different things that many hunters discard in the field, where we as we take everything. Literally.
Yeah, full carcass. Yeah, we use the full animal. We've always
The
used
bones, everything we have all that stuff.
And a live animal usually averages, you'd like to be 700, 700 pounds and up, depending if it's a female. And then a bull, obviously will get 1,500 pounds and up too as they get bigger. So when you're utilizing the whole animal, you guys are utilizing, quite a bit more than just the meat, because the meat's about half, right?
Yeah. Well, recently we went on a hunt, and our rangers gave her an opportunity to hunt a trophy buffalo, and we came out in a half-ton truck, which is about right. It's enough to haul an animal that big. But when those rangers told us, yeah, this trophy buffalo that she's going after is anywhere 2,500 pounds on up, and I just kept thinking, how are we going to haul that?
Yep.
Oh, next question, since we're on the buffalo, you're talking about that. Once you slice it and it's done and you dry it, how do you dry it, and how long does that take to dry the meat to get prepared to make wasna?
Okay, so the drying part takes about 3 to 4 days. That's just from my kitchen because I get a lot of sunlight and a lot of airflow through my kitchen. So it takes about 3 to 4 days for me. On a good day, 3 days. But I haven't tried a dehydrator yet, so I can't speak about that. All of the foods that we dry on screens, and we dry by hanging them over sticks. So it's a little bit of a wait, but with this meat, because it's indoors, you don't have to worry about flies or anything like that. And then you could just leave it and then come back like 3 days later, 4 days later, and it's dried.
And it's
So the
dry.
only thing you would need to do is just take it off and store it. And we keep ours in a tote where it's a pretty heavy duty tote, and we keep it sealed shut. And we also keep it with some chayaka, which is the mint plant. So we would keep that in there with it too. The reason why we do that is because I know that the tote won't get any like creepy crawlers in it, but when they would use those caches a long time ago, they would store the meat with the mint as a repellent for like the insects and stuff. So I just do it. I just do it because that's how they did it. So I haven't seen it. It doesn't affect the taste or anything like that, but I feel really assured whenever I know that I have that mint in there just in case.
Right.
So yeah, yeah.
So if they're not doing the traditional hanging, they can use the dehydrator or an oven.
An oven on the low setting.
On a low setting until it's dry and they got all the moisture out of it, because the goal is to completely pull all that moisture out of the meat.
Right.
On there.
Yeah, you're releasing the oxygen from the meat, and that's kind of why that's mold doesn't build up.
Right.
Mold needs oxygen in order to build, and so whenever the oxygen is released from the meat, then it won't mold. That's why our people did it that way, so they can preserve it for long periods of time.
Great. All right, well, let me keep going so you can start making it, and then we'll get to some more questions.
Okay. One more thing I wanted to add too is that whenever we do dry our meats, we don't add any seasonings to it. And the reason why we do that is so that we can use it in different dishes. So like if I wanted to make soup or the wasna, I wouldn't want salt on my meat or pepper in my wasna. That's personal preference, but I wouldn't want to taste that. So there's no seasoning that goes on to this meat at all. It's just meat. So, and you can also eat it when it's like this, when it's dried. You can eat it as a snack like this. I personally feel like it tastes a lot better when it's baked. And so the difference between this one, this dried meat is that this one isn't cooked. This one is baked in an oven for 350 degrees for about 8 minutes. And the reason why we bake it is so that it helps it crush, or I'm able to shred it a lot easier because it's even more dry. So that's what we do. Beginning with wasna, we'll take our meat. I'll put it on a cookie sheet like this, and then just lay them on top of the cookie sheet, and then throw it into a preheated oven at 350 degrees for about 8 minutes. So if you keep it in there any longer, you have potential to burn your meat. And I mean, if you don't like burnt meat, then you're not going to like the taste of that. So I like burnt meat.
We like burnt meat.
Tastes good.
We like burnt meat.
For the roast, it doesn't matter if it's leg or shoulder, as long as it's the roast and the leaner.
Just as long as it's, yes. Yep, that's true. And what you want to do too is if there's any fat on the roast, be sure to leave that fat attached to the meat while you dry it.
You know, an interesting thing that my grandpa used to say about burnt meat, he said that his grandpa told him that cleans your stomach. So I don't know what that means, but I just think that's interesting that you're kind of on the brink of burning the meat. And so what does that do?
Well, the taste is kind of bitter too. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so
bad jokes. We're talking about jerky, so the jokes are dry.
Nah. Okay. So moving on.
Sorry.
So we're going to, after we get it baked, you're going to want to cool your meat down until it's really cool to the touch, because if you first take it out and try to work with it, it's still pliable, still going to be bendy. You're not going to be able to shred it up as well. So you want to be able to cool this down before you start shredding it. It makes it a lot more crispier. You hear that? Like that. This is the sinewy part, the silver skin. So you want to take this part of the meat. You're going to, what I use is a mortar and pestle, or I have my rocks, and I'll just throw, can you grab me that bowl? Throw that in there. So I'll take my mortar and pestle, and I only throw in a little bit of meat at a time. That way I can concentrate on doing smaller amounts like this. That way I make sure that I get all of the meat shredded. And I'm not sure if you can see this very well. Can you see this? Where it started to break apart?
Yeah, it looks great.
Yep. So that's what we want to do. So we want to be able to break the meat up, so that way it'll end up shredded just like this. So what it kind of reminds me of is the like skull cans that they would have a long time ago that had the shredded meat in there that was really salty. That's what this kind of reminds me of. It's really shredded, almost powdery. This is what we're going to be working with whenever we do our wasna. Okay. Did I forget anything? Doing okay?
I don't know.
And
I don't know.
when you take it and it gets dried and then you put it into there and then you're pounding and shredding it with the choke cherries, or you shred it first before you add the choke cherries?
Yes. So you're going to shred your meat first. You're going to get it ready to be able to add to your other ingredients. So you want to shred all of your meat and just set it off to the side whenever you're done doing that, because usually you would have to prepare your fruit. And what I have here is the chokecherry. So this is the frozen chokecherry. So what my family does is we go out and we scout for places to find chokecherries, because for the past 2 years, we've had a lot of issues finding chokecherries, especially on the reservation. The 2 years ago, there was hardly any. And then last year, there was nothing at all. You couldn't find them in Pine Ridge or Rosebud. And it seemed like if you wanted chokecherries, there were a few in the Hesapa in the Black Hills. But if you really wanted to get a good bounty, then you had to go to North Dakota or Wyoming to harvest.
Yeah, we found near the Bighorns, we found chokecherries there, and then Standing Rock, which was really nice. We were just visiting, we saw a whole tree, and we ended up just staying the whole day and harvesting. Yeah.
So the chokecherry, you want to get it when it's ripe. And nowadays you just really have to watch the plants to see when the fruits are ripe. You just have to go out and check it. You can't just wait on the first frost for like buffalo berries and stuff anymore.
Right.
You have to actually go out and test them. So with the chokecherry, what we do is we wait until they get really big, juicy, and black. And when you touch the stem, the cherries fall off really easily. That's when you know it's time to harvest the chokecherries. Plus, if you harvest the chokecherries when they're ripe, they're really sweet. They are so good. They have so much flavor to them. Not so much that dry mouth taste or the tartness if you would get if you got them before they were ripe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when they're crushed too, that dry taste is absent too. That kind of is removed. So I should mention too, you can do this with any berry. You could do it with just about any other type of berry. We have a bunch of berries, but is that where you're going to go? Is that why you brought that up?
Well, you were talking about the berries. I was just going to show these are wild plums, so we can add those too if we wanted to. But
yeah, you can add aronia, choke. There's even a berry called chokecherry. Actually, not that one, but
yeah,
I mean,
I think they're both the same thing.
Okay.
Chokecherry.
So, but like, yeah, you can add, because we have like buffalo berries and we have wild plums,
Currants.
currants. Yeah, we've done wasna with a variety of berries, edible berries.
Yeah.
Chokecherries are just the most nutritious.
Right. And the best time for chokecherries obviously is not
Like late August.
late August.
Yeah.
In August.
Yeah.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah. So I'll talk about like Tanka Bar and modernization. Lisa, sorry, my dog, I apologize for my dog in the background. When we modernize this recipe, what you're seeing is dried buffalo and then pounded chokecherries with the seeds. This is a very, a more traditional type recipe. How we had to do this to modernize it to get it into the stores is we don't have chokecherries readily available. One, because we know they're so sensitive. So Native American or Tanka Bar, we use cranberries, which is in the same family as the chokecherry berry. So it has that high acid fruit. So we use cranberries in place of the chokecherries. Obviously, we're still using the buffalo, and then we slow smoke the bar, like I said, over time, and we're not sucking all the moisture out. So when you're eating a Tanka bar and you're looking at the Tanka bar itself, and it looks like that, you'll be able to see the cranberries inside of it, and you're going to get a sweet, smoky, tender mouthfeel when you're eating a Tanka bar. So compared to the traditional recipe everybody's seeing today versus the Tanka Bar recipe, there is a different profile taste, but that's just was part of because of the ingredients we have to get ready, but it is as traditional as we can get it in a modern way. So I just wanted to add that there to everybody so they can see the difference, because you're drying and we slow smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, and this is pretty dry, but today what we're going to do is we're going to use the wet the chokecherry. So this is going to actually make the meat a little bit more hydrated, because we just ground this just this morning, but the pits are included inside of this little mush. So let me see. I think I have my lighters somewhere. It's in my pocket, hon. Okay. Can you grab it? My back pocket. So what we do with the chokecherry is I like to grind it when it's frozen. So if we're using our stones, then we'll start off with a little handful of our chokecherries and create a little mush on our stones. That way it keeps the other chokecherries when we start to add it to the stone like this in place. So we're not losing any. You're going to lose chokecherries if you use a stone. It just happens. But what we use this morning is our cornmeal. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right here.
This bad boy.
Yes. And I kind of want to demonstrate like grinding the frozen chokecherries, which could be like an ice cream, I think.
Sure.
Yeah. So the two plates on this grinder, there's two plates on them when they both have ridges. So with the cornmeal, we like to use that because it grinds the pits up. And when the chokecherries are really ripe, the pits get really big. So we try to use the cornmeal too to make it really fine, extra fine. Go ahead.
So we're going to do this real quick. It's going to take a little bit of time, but just bear with us. And
it's going to be loud.
Maybe not that loud. Some of you can do real loud like me, but you know, you don't have to be. Can you move that delicious camera over here?
They said keep the puns coming, Arlo.
There you go. Look at that. Look at that beautiful.
Yeah, it's really pretty. It's a deep purple color. We should have had smell-o-vision.
I wish I was like smell. Yeah.
Yeah, that smell is amazing. So, and like I said, the reason why we do that is so that we can grind that pit up extra fine. Can we see? Did I move it back in the right position?
Yep, that's good.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we got our choke cherries. And now what we want to do is whenever we're teaching about the Wasna, you can use the fresh choke cherries and grind them that way, and it adds a lot of moisture to your meat. Or if you wanted to, you could even take your chokecherry patties. These are the patties my daughter did, but it's this mush right here, and you make it into little patties like you would like making hamburgers, just like that. And you place it on a screen and you let it dry. So let's say I wanted to use this for my wasna, because this is all I had. What I would need to do is just break it up, and then I can add it to my meat that way too. So, and these make a great snack also. So you can eat your little chokecherry patties, but like I said, today we're going to use the fresh chokecherries that we just ground. So what I'm going to do is we'll do the chokecherries here. Can you see that one? Okay. All right. So we're going to put all the ingredients on this cutting board right here, and then just mix it together. So we have our meat, our dried meat here, and we're going to slowly add our chokecherries to the meat. If you want to go ahead and start mixing that together. So wasna is going to be a mixture of the chokecherries and the dried meat plus fat. So fat is going to kind of bind everything together. Is that what it's that word? It's just going to
yes.
hold everything together.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's going to help.
Yes.
Yep. Can you guys see that? Okay.
What am I doing? I'm going to use this hand. That way.
And
my paw is not in the way.
And wasna too, what we encourage people to do is to make it to your own liking, since you're going to be eating it. And if we're making wasna with other people, then we try to encourage them to just make it the way they like it, because everybody has their own way of making.
Almost a Tanka bar. All right, so there.
Is that good?
Yeah, I think so. No, I mean, it can be done better.
Yeah, it could be done better.
But this is the guy version of getting it done.
Jesus. Here, let me take over. He could talk while I take over. I didn't want to correct him on
and we had a couple questions on chokecherries, which I know. One, can you buy them frozen? Chokecherries, which we know you can't, and then where you can find chokecherries. I know somebody said Colorado, but
we've heard about them being as low as Texas. Yeah, I mean, chokecherries are everywhere, and they're they get confused with a variety, because some berries are poisonous, and actually, I mean, if people even consider the chokecherry to be poisonous as well too. We were on a moonlight walk in the Black Hills with the rangers up there, and we were listening to the ranger talk about all the different plants, and then he said, "These right here are chokecherries. Don't eat them. They have arsenic in them, and they're poisonous." And we were just looking at each other like, "What?" We didn't realize that it was considered poisonous. We've been eating this our entire lives.
We were saying when we were kids, because if you grew up around chokecherries, everybody ate chokecherries while they were picking them. Even the dogs ate the chokecherries. So you would be out there filling up your bucket, and your dog will get the bottom part of the chokecherry and eat that part of the bush. So yeah.
So a lot of animals, they really eat the chokecherry. They're like all about it. And I have a theory. I think that's why coyotes survived that whole canine killing spree when they went and eradicated all the wolves. Coyotes were on the list of killing those animals too, but coyotes were not eradicated. In fact, they flourished. And I honestly believe that it's because of the berries that they put in their stomach, because if you look at coyote droppings, they are full of chokecherries.
Yeah, especially around the time when chokecherries are ready. Yeah, you'll see scat all over with chokecherry pits in it, like a lot of chokecherry pits.
Right.
So
And we know they have good medicinal properties.
Oh yeah.
You know, from we've all used chokecherry bark tea. There, all of, and we know that it had, as far as that goes with teas, with coughs, stomach aches, there's different types of things. We've all used either the bark of the tree or the cherries themselves.
Right.
And then also the technique of grinding the seeds with the berries itself is also part of that medicinal part of Wasna, and eating that too, even though they say there are those higher levels and it's got that bitter thing. But we've been eating like this for as long as I've been, since I know, and it's been going back centuries from my understanding there.
Yeah. Yep.
Here's a question on the chokecherries again. Do you add fat to it so it binds together?
Yes, we're gonna add fat.
But when you're drying it, we don't.
Oh, when you're drying it? Oh, not the wasna. When you're just drying the chokecherries?
Right.
I'm sorry. When you're drying the chokecherries, no. The chokecherries are just the chokecherries.
So the fat is added when you're putting everything together. Wasna.
Yep. Yeah, not whenever you're drying it. So you won't use fat at all until you get to the point where you mixed all your ingredients for the wasna. Yeah. So you want to talk about our fat?
Okay. So this is a fun one. And for a long time, we've been using different varieties of fat. We've even used bacon fat. And it's interesting because buffalo fat, we just started, the past year, we've started rendering down our buffalo fat. We've been collecting it, but it's actually, buffalo is so lean. So like identifying fat throughout the buffalo, you kind of want to keep fat with the meat. And so, but it's very low in the buffalo. Oh, well, in our buffalo on the Pioneers Reservation, there's very low fat. So we didn't get a whole lot. It's finally up till now we started rendering all the fat that we've been collecting, and what's really interesting about buffalo fat is that Lisa was frying it one day, using it to fry, and it smelled like fish. It was just like the strong odor of fish just came through the whole house. And we were talking about it, and we were thinking, buffalo's high in omega-3, like fish. And we can only assume that it was the omega-3 we were smelling. So something to think about. Right. But yeah, we use the fat in our we use buffalo fat in our wasna, and that's what this is doing right here. We're just kind of melting it real slow. So and then whenever you're mixing these all together, it's your discretion. You add as much as you want to whatever it is you like. Like I like a lot of chokecherry in my wasna. So my wasna, my Tanka Bar is heavy in chokecherry. And I just I hated chokecherries my whole life too. It wasn't until maybe like 3 or 4 years ago I was like in love with the stuff. That's my favorite thing to do, is to grind it, because then I'll have the opportunity to clean off the grinder, and then I could lick my fingers. This stuff is really, really good.
And buffalo and chokecherries, it's all really good for you. Like you're saying, like smelling that omega, the omega-3, nutritional wise, buffalo is higher in omega-3s than sockeye salmon. It's higher in protein than chicken and beef. So it's a very good protein for you. We know buffalo are a keystone species to this country. So part of our mission and all of our mission is bringing the buffalo back to the lands, lives, and economies of our people is our overall mission too. And hence teaching this, what you guys are doing is bringing that back. Also, to get this education about buffalo, the diets, chokecherries, everything that we have used when we get sick. We were always taught to go back to our traditional ingredients, which was buffalo berries, corn, and water. So if you're ever sick, we were always told to go back to that part of it and eat as whole as you can, to be healthy. So some of my on that, I love that omega-3 story though, how you said it smelled like fish, because it is high in that.
Yeah, Don, it was really, really neat to, as we've been doing this for a long time, and we make little discoveries like this all the time. And then all of a sudden, what's really amazing is whenever we connect it back to culture. And that process right there is monumental for our people. It brings back the buffalo, our culture, our way of life, our way of thinking. It's just amazing. So when we make these little discoveries, it just leads into the fact that our people knew what they were doing when it came to food. So it's really cool to identify these things. And for instance, there's another thing that we noticed too. We were reading a book, and then Mark Tilson, who's also on the board for Tanka Bar, he also mentioned this to me too. Whenever they're pounding, whenever they're putting the meat and the chokecherry, because it's a high protein and a high, not a high protein, but it has protein and it has sugar. And putting those together requires pressure. And that's exactly what's going on here whenever you're doing you're doing this and you're applying pressure. You're causing the protein and the sugar to bind. And that right there is like very important for it to grab each other. And then, I mean, that's what makes this the ultimate go bar. Like before there were power bars, this was the original power bar.
Right,
So,
exactly. And how much fat do you use in that? Because the people are asking kind of like the ratio of meat to berries to fat. And
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, go ahead. Nope. Go ahead.
So Wasna is made to your liking. There's really no recipe. There's just, these are the ingredients. Now put them together how you want them to be kind of thing, And you can make it any way you want. So when we do our Wasna, we always make sure that we have enough of the meat and the chokecherry. Start off with a small amount like this and just slowly add to it. With the fat now, that too, is it this one right here? That too, we just add a little at a time. So with this stone right here, I melted the fat that is in the jar right there. And I am going to add it. I'm going, you turd. Don't laugh, you're encouraging him. I'm just kidding.
So, and I go back to Sisters Ruth's recipe that we've posted on our Facebook several times. So we can take everybody back to our Facebook or Instagram, and we'll repost it again for you to look. I just got to get the link again. I don't have it. Sorry, everybody. But it does actually have a specific recipe that they can use using the bop, the cranberries or chokecherries or blueberries or whatever berry. And then vegetable oil can be used in place of the fat. Somebody asked if they could use butter or ghee. I've never done that before, but it sounds delicious.
Yeah. I'm sure that'll work. I mean, it's an oil. I mean, at a certain temperature, it becomes an oil, especially with butter, because that's gonna solidify when it gets to room temperature.
Right, just like the fat and the buffalo fat solidifies and helps keep the structure of the bar together. Now, when we eat wasna, we're usually eating it kind of dried in a bowl, usually how we're getting it, or not pounded together. Now, really traditional wasna, Can you kind of go over that process really quick? We're into our Q&A as you're moving forward.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
What was the question?
The traditional Wasna.
So where they take the meat and it's sliced, and then they're pounding the berries into the meat and actually pounding it in there and then hanging it to dry.
Oh, okay.
And then what they did, take the wasna and we would pack it in the organ fats into a parfleche, wrap it, and then store that at that time. So for long-term storage, it was packed in a lot of organ fat to keep the freshness in there in layers.
The parchment paper. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So you want to grab one of those intestines full of fat real quick?
Now, Tanka Bar, our fat, what we do is usually it's we don't add fat to ours. Ours comes from the blend of the meat that we use. So we'll use we have a little bit, we add a little bit more fat into it, but not a lot. We're using a 90-10 consistency of bison meat in Tanka bars, and then the cranberries are added. And how Tanka bars are made, or is it for the pressure part of it? We're grinding it and forming it and smoking it. So that's how we modernize that recipe. That was a question.
So whenever you get your wasna, I just wanted to kind of like maybe give a visual about what you were saying about packing it inside the intestine.
Yep.
So this is fat inside the intestine right here. So they would use those like that. So
I brought these just to show off a little bit. This is the cull fat, and it's basically what we render. I mean,
yeah,
the majority of our fat, we render that, and that's the intestine.
with
and
all
you can
the
talk
fat.
about that.
Okay, so the caul fat will just hang. So that will hang. So if we were doing the wasna with the caul fat, then we would just take a piece of that caul fat off and then use that for the fat too. That's off of the buffalo also. So we try to make sure that we have all sorts of sources of fat. So, okay, so this is what your wasna is going to look like. See how it sticks together?
Put it a little closer. The phone kind of tilted up, but just a little bit there.
Can you see it?
Yep.
So I just made it into a ball just to show you how it sticks together, just like that. And you can break it apart. So the fat already hardened. Whenever I put it on there, it cooled off really fast. So it was allowed to make everything stick together. And this is just for me putting it together, but there's no chokecherry or anything else that's coming off of this. Everything's pretty much well blended. And then I have parchment paper or wax paper. And whenever we would, because we have a little parfleche bag that's just for wasna, but our son borrowed that parfleche bag and never brought it back. So we had to, so we had to use our man-made parfleche bag. our what do you call it?
What is this called?
This is a wax paper.
Oh, okay.
So this is our parfleche bag for now. It's the wax paper. So what we'll usually do, if your wasna is really wet, you want to be able to eat your wasna right away or refrigerate it so it doesn't mold. But if you use your,
how long can they refrigerate that?
For a long time, very long time. And if you use the dry ingredients, so let's say you're using the dry meat and the chokecherry patties, because that's what you have, and your oil, you do not need to refrigerate that.
Okay.
That can last forever.
So using the fresh berries, though, we would have to.
Yeah, because it's wet.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Lost your close up.
Oh, dear.
I think somebody's calling.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. We got it back. Yeah. So then you can just put it in your parfleche. I mean, if you have a parfleche bag or your wax paper or your little paper bag and just store it If it's wet, it needs to be refrigerated. If it's not, then you can keep it in a baggie for a long, long time.
Right.
So that's how you make the wasna.
Awesome.
Your own Tanka bar.
It's not a complicated process. It's very simple. And
So
I'm
just
sorry.
if you could just give a quick rundown again. So if I'm just like locally and I don't have buffalo available and I just got to go down to my local market because I want to try to do this recipe, what can they purchase in placement of the 3 items that you have there? So just like me and a family of 3, and I just want to buy 1 roast and make some wasna.
right. One thing that we should state is you can use any berry. You can also use any meat. I mean, for example, you can use, did you know that they have deer jerky?
What do you mean, deer jerky?
You can use deer jerky.
We've
Oh,
used
For
Tonka
real
bars.
though.
We've used Tonka bars and dried them in the oven and then put them in our food processor. Because it's pretty much has all the ingredients of wasna. So we just dried it even more, and then we've used that for making some wasna when you want like the dried the dried taste.
Yeah, right. You can use cow.
Elk.
Yeah, yeah. Basically any meat that you find at your grocery store, you would be able to use that. Just cut it really thin. If you don't want to hang it to dry, you can use a dehydrator or your oven at a very low setting. I've seen it dried in the oven, so I didn't do it myself, so I don't know how long it will take to dry it in the oven. But I'm sure you probably just need to keep checking on it and testing it out or whatever. But just a really low setting.
And what type of oil in the grocery store would you recommend for them if they don't have access to bison oil or buffalo oil, which most people don't?
Yeah, like the ghee that you had mentioned before, that's a good one. He uses ghee a lot. And then find soup bones. So in the usually where they sell like the kidneys, I would say kidney and like the pig's feet, stuff like that, they usually have soup bones there. Use the marrow in that soup bone because that marrow will add so much flavor. There's your fat right there. You don't need so much of it. You can store your soup bone in the freezer and just pick at the marrow as you need it, whatever, but use a soup bone. That's what I suggest anyway. Yeah, but if you can't find soup bones, I know we have that, what's it called? Ice cap, that lard.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that one, but yeah. I mean, you could use just about anything. If you want to go bougie, then go ghee.
Yeah.
Yeah, lard, vegetable oil. Yeah, I've seen a mix. Everybody's done it different. Cranberries, blackberries, plums, apricots. I've even seen apricots.
Yep. Raisins. You could use raisins because in the cornmeal wasna, you use raisins because they got it out of the commodities. So yeah. So that's where the cornmeal wasna came from. It's just using what you have, like you're asking about. So yeah, if you have the craisins, is that what they're called?
Is that what they're? Yeah.
Craisins.
Craisins are good.
That would work. That would work really well.
Thank you, Anna. I see you're back.
Popping back. Thank you so much. This was really incredible. I love being in your home and seeing this demonstration and you eating along the way kind of makes me hungry and want to try it out. No, I love it. Thank you to Don for helping moderate this and asking really great questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all your questions, but we'll send a follow-up email with a link to the video recording. The video is also on our Facebook page now. But I just wanted to express my deep thanks to Tanka Bar, to Diamond Ranch, to Lisa and Arlo Ironcloud for joining this session. I put a link in the chat to where you can buy Tanka Bar. It's very easy to order it online. And then also in the chat is a registration link to our final slow meat session all about policy. Let me just grab that link one more time. So we'd love to see you same time next week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern for the last in this series. Any final words, Lisa, Arlo, Don, before we wrap up?
We always say Matakiase. We're all related. We're all here. Be kind to each other, especially during this past year. Sending out prayers and thoughts to everybody. And thank you for the time and everybody joining us. And thank you, Lisa and Arlo, for being in your home.
We want to thank Tanka Bar for giving us this opportunity, for you guys giving us this opportunity to be able to share. This is really good, guys. This is delicious. But thank you for
That's
giving
awesome.
us the opportunity to share, especially, you know, talking about the buffalo, the bison, and how we actually use everything off the bison when it comes to making, you know, well, 2 of the ingredients that we needed for the Wasna. So we really appreciate having that opportunity to share that information and to be able to show you guys how we make Wasna. So this is the process that we really enjoy, because we usually do this with a lot of children too. So they have fun making Wasna. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I bet that would be fun, the hands-on tactile experience. And I really
Yeah.
appreciate how you steward the resources that you have, and the and teach the next generation also how to steward the land and the animals. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll be in touch. Follow Tanka Bar and Lisa and Arlo on Instagram. You can stay connected. And again, we'll send a follow-up email with a link to the video. But be well. Thank you again. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Arlo.
Thank you.